My grandmother recently passed away, and I was the sole benefactor of her will. She wasn't a rich woman, but she was comfortable enough, and she left me her house, car, and savings. My father is her only child, but he'd made it clear early on when the will was being written up that he didn't want anything from her will, so to give it to me, which she did. I have an older brother who I haven't seen in 5 years. He was disowned by the family for stuff he did, which included stealing from various members of the family and other stuff, but it's bad. He and his then-girlfriend had a 1-year-old son when I last saw them, but honestly, they had no interest in him being around our family in the first place, and would often use him as a bartering chip against my parents. His girlfriend, who is his ex apparently now, reached out to me on social media the day after the funeral and was all sweet and called me babes and used X's and emojis, which, duck off, we're not friends. To sum it up, she asked when the will was being read so she could come. I asked her why she'd be coming, and she said to find out her son's share of the inheritance, obviously. I was beyond shocked at the audacity of this bee, and I told her as much, stating there was nothing in the will for him, and it had already been read to get the funeral plan she'd set out in it. She was pissed at this, and demanded to know why he'd not been included in the will, and asked who'd gotten the things in the will. I pointed out how she'd not acted like family, and my brother had been disowned, so really how could she think he'd be in the will? I also told her that I had gotten the stuff in the will, mistake on my part, but whatever. She began to demand I split it with him, stating that that nice house was much too big for a single 21-year-old girl, and how I didn't need it as much as her, as she had a child to take care of, and how I was being selfish and should sign it over to her, or give her a cut of the money for my nephew's future, and that it was my responsibility as his aunt. I told her no, and to not contact me again. I've heard she's apparently talking on social media about how I've stolen her son's future and food from his mouth and a roof from his head. I won't lie, it's stressing me, and I'm starting to feel guilty. I don't give two craps about her. She can go curl up in a gutter for all I care for what she put my parents through years ago, but I feel guilty for my nephew. He's only a kid, and none of this is his fault, but I have doubts on if anything I give her for him would really trickle down to him. Not the a-hole. However, if you wanted to do something nice for him, you could set up a trust in his name that only he will have access to when he's 18, but it's up to you. Unfortunately, sometimes the sins of the father do affect the son. Not the a-hole. Tell her that she is right. She does have a child to take care of. The operative word here is she. You don't have a child to care for, and her child is not your responsibility. Not the a-hole. Set some aside in an account and forget about it. If he wishes to have a relationship with you in the future, and you decide to gift him some money, it's there. If he doesn't, or if he's also a terrible person, you've still got an account with money you can use for something else. I'm 21 female. I've just finished up my final year of university, and I'm in a poly relationship with a guy and a girl. We've been together a year, and I'm bi, but I kept it from my parents as I didn't think they'd be too fond of this. When my older brother went to uni, our parents bought him a flat as he thought he'd be living there for a while. The flat was bought with 50% of their money, 25% my brother's money, and 25% my money, which my parents controlled at the time, but said they'd pay me back. My brother ended up moving away, leaving the flat empty. My parents were debating selling it, but I was a year off going to uni myself, so they said if I went to the same uni as my brother, I could live there. 6 months ago, I was offered a job on completing a postgrad, so I've got another year of uni to do postgrad, then a full-time job at this place. On telling my parents, they decided to transfer the deed to me, making me the sole owner, as a congratulations on your first career-related job. Once I knew they couldn't kick me out, I came out to them. They said I was no longer their daughter, so they wanted me to leave their flat. I reminded them my name was on the deed, and as the sole owner, I'm not leaving. They said they'd take legal action, but I said I'd consulted with a lawyer who had told me that they wouldn't get anywhere, and they accepted defeat. The lawyer advised me to sell and move anyway. I sold quick. I'm staying with my boyfriend right now, and the money should come in soon. It sold for way more than the initial cost, so I've basically paid in 25% and gotten back 5 times that. I'm looking for a new place. My parents, who I haven't spoken to since I came out, have found out about the sale. I don't know how. They probably saw the flat listed online. I've checked, and they have no legal right to the money. But they said as I only paid for 25% of the initial cost of the flat, and I've made 5 times that without them getting a penny, I should divide it up accordingly to the percentage we all put in. My brother also knows, and he wants his 25%. I don't feel I should have to, as 1, my parents were jerks to me when I came out, and 2, all 3 of them, parents and brother, are established in their lives, careers, have money, and own their homes, while other than this, I only have a couple grand in savings. My partners think I'm morally in the clear because of how my parents responded to me coming out, but on hearing I made 5 times what I put into the flat, they were less sure. And basically everyone in my life has had the same reaction, where they're on board with it right up until the numbers come up, and then they think I might be the a-hole. A couple people stay on board with it the whole way through, but the people who disagree with my handling of the money vastly outweigh the people who agree. Am I the a-hole for wanting to keep the money? Info. My brother chose to put in his 25% and willingly let my parents control the deed the whole time he lived there. My 25% was the only amount entered without agreement, and when he found out about why our parents disowned me, my brother called me hateful slurs, amongst other things, but said that there was a chance for reconciliation when my relationship ended. Update. I'm probably going to give my brother his initial 25% back, so the focus is now more my mom and dad and their 50%. Edit. The initial purchase was about £90,000. My parents put in a combined £45,000. Then my brother and I put in £22,500 each. He put in his voluntarily because he wanted a flat. I didn't know what was happening until it happened. It's sold for £110,000. Most of the increase is due to the area getting more popular since purchasing, though I have fixed it up a little, but the majority of the increase in price just comes down to location. Everyone sucks here. 2 wrongs don't make it right. It seems like your parents gave your brother's portion away without consulting him. At least I'd give the brother his 25%, and the parents get nada because they gifted the flat. Legally, not the a-hole. Morally, not so much. I definitely think about giving your brother his cut. You said 25% was his money, but it was your parents who gave you the title to the property. The part where your brother had his 25% stake, which was apparently in your parents' name, given away, and lost the benefit of his investment is unfair, and you should give him back either his initial investment or 25% of the sale price. Your parents gave you a gift, and that is on them. They can't take it back just because they are bigots. Not the a-hole, but you may be allowing your parents to screw your brother to protect yourself. Make it right. I'm 33 male married with 4 kids. My brother has a girlfriend and 2 kids. He is by far one of the laziest people I've ever met. Refuses to find a job. When he does, he holds it just long enough to make everyone happy, then finds a reason to leave or lose it. Context. Growing up, he was the favorite son. He had everything he wanted handed to him. He was the star of the show, and he was going to be the greatest success. Where I was going to be in jail or dead by 21. I will openly admit that I had problems as a teen and did some stupid things. But regardless, okay, favorite son noted. Jump forward 15 years. I've become the most successful person in the family. I make more money than most of them have seen, and have a nice house, new cars, etc., etc. All the things you do when you're told you will never amount to anything. The golden child, meanwhile, can't stay above water, and has constantly borrowed and bribed his way into others paying his rent and bills. I've always tried to help because we are family, but he's coming up on 30. At his age, I was buying my first house and had stabilized a career. Now, I don't expect all that, but a stable job or income is expected. Recently, he needed help again, and the family turned to me. Everyone was tapped out, and I was asked to front the $1,000 to help this time. I did so, and a month later, still no job. And guess what? Rent's due again. Everyone is trying to find a way to help, even my parents on SSI. I, however, have reached a point of duck it and want to see him fail. No one ever paid my rent. If they loaned me money at all, it was to be paid back quickly and was never just given. I told everyone my bank is closed and it's not my job. He is upset, and the family seems to think I'm too cold to them. I've financially helped every member at least once without expecting to be paid back, but I'm the cold one? But honestly, even if that was the case, wouldn't I have a right to be since I was supposed to fail anyway? So, am I the a-hole for giving up on the star child? Not the a-hole, but you should get therapy for the baggage your family has given you. It sounds like time to shuffle off this dynamic and set real boundaries with your family. Remember, their love turned your brother into what he is today. Don't pursue his failure because that punishes his kids, and they've done nothing but exist. The people who are at fault here are your parents. Not the a-hole. Tell every single one of them to take the money you loaned, gave them, collect it all, then give it to the lazy brother. The brother bank is now closed. Don't lend or give any more money to anyone. You know where the money ends up. Deadbeat bro. Not the a-hole. If you create patterns where you're supporting them, they will never do anything to help themselves. Maybe you could find a way to support the children, but not your brother. Like buy them school supplies or clothes. I have empathy for the children because they didn't ask to be in this situation. Note, I have known people who had situations like you described. Just fast forward 20 years and they are still mooching. You won't cure a moocher by giving in. So unless you want to continue this long term, you have to encourage him to get a job or do something to be out of this circumstance. My sister doesn't like my husband and has spent the last 3 months trying to convince me not to get married to him. Up until the last second before the ceremony, she was still trying to convince me to run away, despite our dad warning her that she wouldn't like the consequences if she was the reason the wedding didn't happen. The reason my sister doesn't like him is their personalities clash, and she thinks he is like our dad and I'll be miserable being married to him. Another thing is, she feels like he embarrassed me since he used to sleep around before, even though we weren't together at the time, because pretty much everyone knew we would eventually get married. She ended up objecting during the ceremony. Our uncle dragged her away and everybody pretended it never happened, although I could see my husband, dad, and some of my in-laws were all angry. Once the ceremony was over, I followed my dad because I knew he was going to yell at her. He was planning to have her sent back to the hotel with my uncle, but I said I didn't want her to go. My dad pretty much ignored me and only agreed to let her stay when my husband said it was okay if she stayed, as long as she didn't cause another scene. My dad was angry at me and told me I was a wife now and I needed to start acting like it. While my husband never said anything about her staying, I don't think he was happy about it either, and I know his parents definitely weren't, since they made remarks about her multiple times during the reception. Am I the a-hole? Everyone sucks here. You're missing way too many details. You're way too vague. What is so bad about your father your sister doesn't like? Why does your father get more say on who's allowed at your wedding than you? What did you mean they already knew you were getting married? Like, everyone is taking your words at the surface and assuming you and your boyfriend dated for a while, fell in love, and both chose to get married. Which is why they are saying you're the a-hole. But is that the case? Is your sister crazy or desperate to save you? My dad isn't what you would describe as a loving father. Having him as a dad was like living with an army general who dictates everything and doesn't forgive mistakes. He also treats me and my sister a lot different to how he treats our brother. When I say everybody already knew, I mean my dad told me it was going to happen, and that was pretty much the end of the discussion, and it became public knowledge over the years. We sort of dated 6 months before the wedding, but by that point we were already engaged. You're the a-hole. Obviously not as much as your sister, but I'm on your dad's side. You're married to him. Your loyalty has to be with him if she can't accept him. She said her piece, you disagreed, the marriage has happened. It's weird to have her there when she can't be happy for the event. There comes a point where it can't just be, so she doesn't like him. Everyone has an opinion. 2, well, he's my family. We're a package deal, and if you can't accept it, go away. And Dad's got a point. That moment is, I do. Everyone sucks here. He was engaged to marry you. It was arranged, you will marry, and sleeping with other people, and you don't seem to worry. Do you agree to an open marriage? Because someone who does it before will not change because of a contract. Of course your sister should be there. She seems like the only person that worries about you, or even likes you in this scenario. My mom was a great mother. I had a really good childhood, especially considering how young she was and that my dad is a piece of crap. I really appreciate how she shielded me from all of that. My mom is married to my former boss, and while it sucks for me, I do believe she did her duty as a mother and deserves to be happy. I used to work for Brandon. This was one of those jobs where networking was everything. You really needed the boss to like you, and you had to present a certain image. I will admit I tried way too hard, and to put it lightly, Brandon did not like me. He was a condescending jerk, and my mom was aware as I vented to her about work. He wasn't outright aggressive, but did laugh at me a lot and make a few comments that weren't cool. My mom and Brandon met at our wedding. Now, I don't believe in love at first sight, but they definitely had something there, and my first instinct was, ew. But they got serious really fast, and I have to say, he makes her really happy, and she has never seemed truly happy before. I hate being around him, wish this never happened, but I am happy for them. My wife thinks my mom is a bad mother for putting herself first. Recently, my 5-year-old son asked why we don't see mom as much as my in-laws, about once a month versus once or twice a week. My wife said that while my in-laws were the best parents, my mom was a bad mom because she married Brandon, who had not been nice to me, and we don't spend much time with her because she was selfish. I was furious and told my son that was not true. I said we don't spend time together because my mom has a busier life and because mother-in-law doesn't work, so they sometimes go over during the day. I said that it was wrong of my wife to say that, and my mom was a great mom. My wife told our son I was wrong, and a good mom would not have married someone like that. I snapped and told my son not to listen to his mother, and she just doesn't like my mom. I said that women with adult kids should put themselves first, and maybe it isn't healthy how much we see mother-in-law, but my mom is a great person, and I won't hear anything more about it. When my son went to play, my wife confronted me and said I undermined her and was acting like a mama's boy. She said I should have not raised my voice. Didn't yell, but did raise it, and that I shouldn't be confusing our son when what my mom did was objectively not okay. Everyone sucks here. Next time you two children want to fight through a third party instead of talking to each other, like ducking adults, try using the dog instead of your impressionable kid as the prop. Both of you suck. Grow the duck up. Everyone sucks here. No one is a winner here. You're both crappy for putting your child in the middle of an argument between you and your wife. Neither of you were actually talking to your son. You were indirectly being jerks to each other about an issue that it seems is unresolved between the two of you. Keep your son out of this. It's only going to cause him a lot of issues in the future. Discuss your issues like adults. Don't use your son as a passive-aggressive tool. You have a weird fascination with not holding your mother to any accountability. You can see others' faults except hers. Whatever else, a great mom would not have gravitated towards a jerk or allowed him to distance her from her child and grandchild.